Welcome to Let's Boop Snoots.
Welcome. My
My
name
name-
is Vero. We did it again.
My name's Heidi,
My name is Vero.
and we are going to boop some snoots today.
Yes. Today we're going to talk about small dogs and big dogs.
And small
Small
dogs.
dogs, big dogs.
Small dogs versus big dogs. Yes, it is the forever debate. Before we get into, I think we have a couple of articles, right? I think I have one and Vero has one. And so we were just going to talk through them about the small versus big dog debate or different things pertaining to small dog and big dogs.
Yes.
But before we start that off, I just wanted to share a little doggo experience as I usually do. But uh, also as a nice friendly reminder to people. So I have a husband and two boys, two teenage boys, and they have left for the next month to go to a summer camp. So it's a huge lifestyle change within the household. And there's no longer all these people around. It messes up the routine with the dog a little bit. So whenever something big like that is happening, even if it's a temporary change, like they're gone for 1 month, you need to think about how that's impacting your dog. So I have boys that play with the dog throughout the evening. They feed them at different times. Well, they also my husband took our older dog Becky with him to camp. So Gibbon, my younger Weimaraner, and it's also important to note that he is a Weimaraner because they are prone
Yeah.
to the separation anxiety. And I was kind of curious. This is the first time that this has happened. So all of a sudden one day, 90% of our household packed up and left. And I was kind of wondering how that was going to impact Gibbon. But instead of thinking about, what is he going to do? I started to think, what am I going to do to even prevent any funky behaviors that might go on? Because that he all these different ways in which he would burn energy playing with the kids, doing like all that different stuff, even playing with the other dog is now all leaving. So if I leave him on his own all day and don't change my behavior at all, you could potentially run into some behavioral issues. So what I started doing is going back to some basic manners and training and exercises like we've always done. It also, this just happened over a holiday where there tends to be lots of fireworks, and I noticed all of our different dog personalities and from the different companies and trainers and stuff all had a big chat about fireworks and dogs. So there was the firework aspect of things too, because we noticed him not like, I don't want to say he's reactive, but like borderline the beginnings of some like reactive stuff around the fireworks too. So I definitely noticed more of a nervous behavior in him. I could see sort of like more anxious behavior. There was a lot more energy and stuff like that. So I was like, what am I going to do about this? So it was making him wait a little bit longer for his food because that's the mental exercise that they get.
Yes.
Taking him for an extra WALK. Sorry, he's sitting right next to me.
Looking very laid back right now.
Looking very laid back right now because of the things that I've implemented. So, sending him to place and having him stay there. So every day when I get home from work, I have my dad, of course, walk him like throughout the day. So I know he's getting that physical exercise. But if any of you have listened to any of our shows, I'm sure you've heard me talk about how there is zero structured anything with my father. So I know that he's getting the physical exercise, but not much else. So what I've been doing is I come home and I take Gibbs out for a structured WALK. And with at the end letting him loose for a quick run through the park close.
You think
close
if
to
I
my
yell
house.
walk loud enough, you'll hear me?
Oh, you can give it a try. Do it. Do it.
Turn down your volume, everyone. Walk.
No.
That wasn't too loud. I just don't want to, burst anybody's ears.
Nothing. He's
who are
fast
listening
asleep
right now.
on the couch here. So what the structured WALK looks like is, keeping him on leash, having him, in the heel position walking next to me, thresholds at every crossroad, crossing any street or anything like that, having him sit, stay, and wait for my release command before he WALKs next to me, and those types of things. So he's getting all of that mental stuff on top on top of it, and I have to say it's been working quite well. I haven't noticed any strange behaviors. Like I said, I noticed he's a little bit more nervous energy styles, but since doing all of these things in place, it hasn't been an issue. So there was one night where I worked shift work, so I was working the late shift, and my dad came to let him out. And when I got home, and that was like on the holiday as well, where when all the fireworks were going off, and he's not scared, he's not shaking, he's not. But if a firework goes off in the neighborhood, it's the head pops up, the ears are up, like he's interested, and
Yeah.
he does the the boof, 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 boof. But not a full on bark. But the way that I handle that is I put him in place. I put him in the place command where, and even I notice with the nervous energy, if I put him in place, again, like we've talked about this in other episodes with training, place is anything. You start out by using a dog bed, and when you say place, he knows that he has to go and lay down there, and that he's going to stay there until I release him. So it sort of shuts their brain off. You're giving them something to focus on so that they're not
Mm-hmm.
reactive, or they're not anxious. It's like, okay, I'm listening to her, she wants me to do this, and it tires them out. So he's following me around, he's wiggling his butt around, he's picking up his toys, he's like sort of walking around me, and I'm like, dude, like he's so busy. And I know I understand where it's coming from, but
He's
I'm
like a
like,
tripping hazard.
yes, and I'm like, place. And then he goes and he sits there and until he falls asleep, because it's exhausting. But he knows, like, well,
Yeah.
I just got to lay here until she tells me what to do next. So
I'm getting so bored. I'm
I'm getting
gonna
so
fall
bored.
asleep.
I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. And it helped with the whole fireworks situation, and it helped with the whole nervous behavior, and so having some of these like fundamental commands under your belt really helps yourself. It makes it versatile into so many other situations. Same thing, like if you bring a dog bed with you and you're going to a friend's cottage that you don't know, you keep them on leash, you let them explore, like, small surroundings, and slowly opening it a bit larger to them. But then you have their dog bed, so when they're getting in the way, or they're not sure what to do, or it's like, oh my god, there's so much stuff going on here, and it's overwhelming for them, you say
Mm-hmm.
place, and it's like, okay, it's almost like a relief. It's like, okay, I know how to do plays, so
Yeah.
I'll do that.
It's the
and i'm
same thing.
and I am exhausted because it's all like it's a new environment and it's super overwhelming. So, anyways, I just thought I would share my experience on that. Some people think like forget about the dog. You have young families, you're trying to organize stuff. There's changes, or people go on trips, or people go and stay with somebody for a while for many different reasons. And you just have to think, how is this going to impact the dog? And
Yeah.
what am I going to do to think of them and maintain that trusting relationship, right? Like, don't
Well, my
forget about.
parents had a dog and they would only move the furniture around and she would get depressed.
It's true. Sometimes,
Yeah.
and and I think we talked about that, where they pick up on that type of stuff, right? Like they see
Mm-hmm.
the suitcases come out and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
something's going on.
Oh, they
Some's.
also had, I'm going to share a little something too.
Hmm.
They had a golden retriever. Her name was Sandy.
Hmm.
And when she saw you, she would grab a toy in her mouth and she would like approach you full on wiggle butt,
Hmm.
whining. She's like so excited to see you. It was like a and then just like shaking her tail so much that her butt was just going from left to right. I was just wondering, I wonder if Ralph is going to be like that. So my parents visited today
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he was doing the whining and the full wiggle butt to my
Really?
mom. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. He was
That's
so
so
excited to
strange.
see her and
Oh my god, that's so
yeah.
funny.
I'm like, is he whining?
Yeah.
It's like it's just too much. It's too much.
It's
And then he
too
was like
much
on his
love.
back, just like scratch my belly.
Oh my god, so cute.
It's
That's
very
so good
cute.
though. That's so good though, because it's like he's submissive too. He's like,
Yeah.
yep.
He does that when he comes out of his crate. So I
Oh yeah.
open the door, he stays in his crate, and then I say free.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes to me and he wags his tail, but then he's on the floor on his back for me to scratch his belly, like first thing in the
Yep,
morning.
that's awesome. I love
And then
it.
we go pee-pees.
Yeah. So since my family has been gone, we have a king size bed. You think like people always when your spouse leaves, you think, oh yeah, you get the bed to yourself. Nope, I'm at the
Nope.
very edge of it with Gibbon shoved right up against me. I've got
Aw,
no extra space. I've
there
got
you
like
go.
nothing. He's like right all up in my business.
He's probably loving it. He's like,
Oh,
yeah.
he's got
He
all
has so
the
much
he's
space.
happy Matt's got like he's like, ah, yes, I can stretch these bouquet of gibbon legs out. Bouquet of legs. All right,
Bouquet of
well,
legs. So, Heidi,
mhm.
are you a small dog or a large dog person?
I think it's fairly obvious,
Yes.
but
There's also medium dogs.
there's medium, but yeah, there's the debate over what to call a small dog or a medium dog. In my article, it said 40 pounds and below is considered small,
Yeah.
and that 40 pounds and up is considered big. Was yours kind of similar?
Yeah. So there's an article and they did a survey on for like large dogs and small dogs. And I think they split them up at the 44-pound.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So below 44, it was small dogs, above 44, or 44 and above.
Mm-hmm.
44, we don't know.
So, have you ever had a small dog?
No,
Yeah, me neither. But
no.
and this is Gibbs's dog number 3. However, Matt has. When he was young, they had a Jack Russell Terrier,
Oh, yeah.
but it was too aggressive.
Oh.
This is foreshadowing, by the way, everybody.
Small dog, aggressive. Interesting.
Hmm.
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 Why is that?
Hmm.
What is going on?
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Qu'est-ce qu'elle a happen?
Do you want to talk about your article first, or would you like me to go
Yes,
first?
I
Okay.
can go ahead. So
Yeah,
this is
you
an
go.
article that's on the AKC website.
Hmm.
It's called "Why Small Dogs Behave Differently Than Large Dogs." So they did a survey of 1,276 surveys. And so dog owners, so small dogs were below 44 pounds, large dogs 44 pounds and above. And they discovered that some of the stereotypes have been confirmed. Ooh. So
Ooh.
small dogs were less obedient.
Hmm.
So obeying to like commands such as sit and down and come.
Hmm.
More excitable, including barking and growling at strangers, visitors, and other dogs. And they were more anxious and fearful,
Hmm.
so more like skittish and all of that. However, the next question was, are these differences due to genetic factors or the way that small dogs are treated in comparison with large dogs?
Hmm.
So, are they trained differently? How do we treat them?
Hmm.
So researchers researchers found an inconsistency with training in small dogs.
Hmm.
So letting things slide, and I kind of saw this when I first got Ralph.
Hmm.
Things like I wanted him to follow me outside. It was
Hmm.
like minus 40 degrees, and he had peed, he had poop. And I was like, come on, Ralph. And he would want to stay.
Hmm.
Sometimes I would just like pick him up and bring him in
Yep.
because that's super easy.
Yep.
And then at some point, I was like, I'm not always going to be able to do
Mm,
that.
yes.
So I have to teach him that when I
Hmm.
say come, he comes to me.
But when a dog doesn't grow to that size and you don't have that in mind, you just keep picking them up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So things like that, jumping on people, it's
Yeah.
cute, can be considered cute for a small dog. You
Except when they
might
have
start.
claws. When they have
Yes.
claws, it hurts because and especially in the summertime when you're wearing shorts and stuff, right? It's one thing
Yeah.
when you have pants on, but you notice it in the summer when a dog comes up and they scratch at your legs, it's like, ow, like
Hmm.
like my mother-in-law's dog like scratched the bejesus out of my legs. And I was like, ow, 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 ow. Anyways,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, no,
Continue.
that's true.
Hmm.
They might get their dog and start training them not to jump on people. Some days they let it slide because it's not really hurtful. It's not like it's going to be a Great Dane or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. Lack of shared activities. So they discovered that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they mentioned jogging,
Mm-hmm.
which is true.
Mm-hmm.
You would never bring like your little chihuahua jogging with you.
For like a marathon, yeah, no, you wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Hiking, you see people, maybe biking, you would bring your small dog, but like hiking might be, a little bit more difficult depending on where you're going.
Or how long you're going for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the use of punishment. So I'm not sure about this one. It's not the punishment, like the different punishments that are used, but when they are used, they have a greater effect on the
Mm-hmm.
dog. So things like jerking a leash really hard, scolding, hitting a dog will have a greater effect
Mm-hmm.
on a small dog. I think that highlights like a big part of it is that small dogs are not trained the same way as big dogs. Think it's easy to let things slide because they're a smaller size, they cause less damage, and then you're left with a small dog that doesn't really behave as well,
Mm-hmm.
but it does cause
Mm-hmm.
less damage.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
These are all things to consider in the big dog small dog debate. So
Yeah.
it's funny because we've already claimed our biases at the beginning of this discussion, and it's funny. I'm doing a lot of like research article reading, and you have to claim like your stance when producing something. So we are large dog biased people
Yes.
in this episode in the big dog small dog debate. But when you think of a small dog, you think like yappy, you think like, yeah, some people think aggressive because like the chihuahuas are known for being like ankle biters, right,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. And I think that when you start getting into the dog training world and stuff like that, people do tend to humanize the smaller dogs a little bit more. You know what I mean? And it's like when they're, because they're tiny and they look so tiny, and even though like it's like you lose the rationalization of no, the dog is still like older and mature,
Yeah.
but
And
they
it's like
look
a
like a
baby.
petite, like a, and it is like a
Yeah.
baby. Do you remember on the episode when we talked about the television show Canine Intervention? And in
Mm-hmm.
that,
Oh, yes.
in one of the episodes where he goes to this small dog lady's house, and they're like, all right, well,
Is
let's
it
go
like
see how
heaven
he
or
does.
something like that?
Yeah, I think so. And he's like, all right, well, let's see how he does on a walk. And then she starts pulling out the stroller, and she needed like a raincoat,
A
and he was like,
suitcase. I
yes, like
forgot the suitcase.
yes, like of all these things that the dog might, it was like taking a baby for a walk. Like she had
Yeah.
like all these like accoutrements to
And that's
take.
the other thing.
Yeah,
Bringing a small, like you often see small dogs on retractable leashes.
yeah,
They just go wherever they want to. If they pull, it's not a big deal because you're so
yeah,
much bigger than they are.
yeah.
But
And
when
I
it
think,
comes to a big dog, you let that happen.
and they're pulling your arm out of your socket. So
Yeah.
there's definitely the urgency for more training, I think, with large dogs because of these things. And that when people are getting a large dog, they tend to keep these things in mind. Like you said, when he was young and you're potty training him outside, you're trying to teach him to come, but it's so easy to just pick them up. And because
Mm-hmm.
it's cold, it's nighttime, there's all kinds of rationalizations that you can come up with. But those like those exceptions, I think, are easier to become behaviors with small dogs because there is no urgency. The dog isn't getting bigger, the dog isn't getting louder, the dog isn't um, jumping and doing as much damage to either furniture, things, people, like all of that stuff like doesn't
Yeah.
happen as much with small dogs. So, and my article sort of talks about that, so let me see here. So the first thing they talk about is that there is like a sizable spectrum. There's like, ranging from like the tiniest little chihuahua to like, a Saint Bernard, right? And that they talk about how people consider about what size of dog to get, and they sort of talk about some of the considerations. So like one of the things it says, like, a dog size does have practical consequences, and they say like, just ask anyone with a Great Dane suffering from diarrhea.
Mm.
It's not going to have quite the same consequence for a person with like a small Maltese
Yeah.
or a Chihuahua, right? And just like when you're trying to get a chihuahua into a car that's not wanting to. You don't have to think about, rather than trying to get like a Newfoundlander inside the car that's refusing, right? Like you can't, like you said, it becomes about the lifting thing and the physicality like of it, like, and just like you said, pulling your arm off rather than like these little dogs just not doing that, so
Yeah.
you don't have to train to the size of the dog, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just talks about how the cost involved as well. So like small dogs are like less expensive. Now, mind you, we say that, but Chanel and Louis Vuitton make little dog carriers that you can put your dogs in to carry around. I think like I find that like the amount of things that people buy for small dogs, I think is increased rather than like big
Equivalent
dogs.
to.
Like they get like you said, when you humanize and you baby them, it becomes like you're buying them clothing and you're getting them sunglasses and you're getting the stroller or you're getting the carrier to carry them around. I remember being in Tokyo, Japan, and when we went shopping, when you went into one of these designer stores like Chanel or Louis Vuitton or Michael Kors or whatever, there was the big store and then they had a dog section for all of the tiny
Oh,
dogs, for all the tiny
that's
little
funny.
designer dogs. I know. You talk about the cost, but when you talk, those are all things that are sort of, take it or leave it. But when you get into vet bills, for sure, your vet bill's going to be more expensive with a Great Dane rather than a Chihuahua. You also have to think about food, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously food's going to be a bit more expensive
Yeah.
with the big ones. And it does talk about the mobility issues. So it's funny because like, and I think I mentioned this on a recent episode, that a close friend of the family who's like very much a dog person, his wife's like a professional dog trainer. They had a Great Dane, they had a G Shep, and he just recently got a new dog, and I was like, oh my goodness, what kind of dog did they get? Like I was like so excited. And they got this like Swedish Valhund, which is like basically looks like
Yeah.
a G Shep and a corgi had a baby. And I was like, what? I was almost disappointed. I was like so excited to hear like what breed he was going to get.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find out that he got a small dog because they've always had such large dogs. And when I asked him, like, I was like, well, I'm here. I am showing my dog bias again. I said, "What? Why didn't you get a real dog?" But he because he's getting older. Him and his wife are getting older. They can't lift
Yeah.
the Great Dane into the car to take to the vet. They can't lift the like, as the dog gets older, they can't lift the dog on to the bed. Not that the dog's sleeping with them, or but you can't take the dog upstairs. You can't lift him upstairs if he needs to go
Yeah.
upstairs, and these types of things. And that was the reasoning behind the choice for a small dog. Getting more into my article, they talk about the behavioral aspect of it too. So they do talk. Oh, they also talk about some of the environmental reasons. So when you're looking to rent an apartment, and I noticed this too, as a friend of mine is moving to Vancouver, which is pretty big city. She's looking for a condo. She has a small dog, and when we were looking for places for her to live, most of them say small dogs only.
Yes.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of stuff, and it talks about like the exercise needs, sensitivity, and those types of things with like small dogs. And of course they preface everything by saying that obviously there's a, these are generalizations that we're making. There's people who do train their small dogs like really well. There's dogs that are less sensitive or less barky or less like all of this. And it says like, are these behavioral differences size based? And it says for the most part the answer is absolutely not. Dogs of all size like love to play and fetch or go on walks or run off leash or do all this stuff or play with other dogs and participate in all this stuff. Like you mentioned, and I'm almost wondering if like your article was sort of like quoted in this article too. It then you have to look at the owner. Like at some point you have to turn and look at the owner and what are those different types of things. Yeah, so it talks about, is the guardian how does the guardian behavior towards dogs of different sizes influence their behavior. It said, so it talks about, they quote a couple of different studies, and in one of them it says that that dogs were reported to be less obedient. slightly more aggressive or excitable, and more anxious and fearful. And that people with small
Hmm.
dogs also reported a lower level of consistency in their training and
There we
rules
go.
than with larger dogs. And like,
Ta-da!
ta-da! And again, it's true. It's because dog training takes patience and it takes time. And when you know that the size is going to work against you, in all the examples that I provided, you know that you have to do it with a large breed dog. You have to, and it's so hard because they are so cute, but you know down the road it's going to be a problem. You need to think long term. And
Hmm.
with small dogs, like I said, 3 times in this episode already, like people don't need to think about that. But one thing that they commented on here that I found very interesting is that they found that, especially with the small dogs that have very pronounced, like more juvenile features, such as we mentioned in the last episode, the Cavalier King Charles, because he has that
Hmm.
tiny little skull and that tiny little face and like the tiny little like soft floppy ears, is that researchers called it the awe phenomenon. Like,
Aw.
ah, ah, or like he's
Aw.
he's scared. Oh, and you pick him up. Oh, that big
Yeah.
dog's scaring him. Oh, and like, he looks so cute. Let's buy him a little hat. Oh, look at the little sunglasses on him. Oh, and it goes on and on and on, and it talks about like that hormone that people release, like oxytocin,
Hmm.
when you're looking at these. It's just the same as looking at a baby, a mom looking at her baby. It releases like hormones where you're like, ah, and so you're immediately, it's like the dog's got you wrapped around their finger.
Hmm.
And it is, some of the small breeds are super cute. We talked about it, when I think back to our breeds episode, when we went through different breeds, I think it our bias showed there as well. Because I think we did mostly large breed dogs. But so then it talks about socialization in this article. These are some of the things that you mentioned in yours, and I'm wondering if this is the part where it sort of talked about your article a little bit. And it just talked about the socialization. So people are so quick to pick up their dogs in like uncomfortable situations. So
Hmm.
you're not forcing them to, or teaching them the coping mechanisms that they need when you're talking about socialization with your dog. And again, for those of you who haven't listened to other episodes, when we say socialization, I sent Vero a meme today actually, where it says, when people uh, think about socialization with dogs, they think it means playing with other dogs. It's not. It's about introducing them to different environments, different sounds, different textures, different everything. Getting them used to loud sounds like fireworks, or if you live in downtown, with cars being around, and pavement, or versus sand versus grass versus water, and all these different things. And so when a little tiny baby cute little dog, a little sweet Cavalier King Charles,
Aw.
ah, and goes on the sand, and like my yep, it's so easy to just pick them up real quick, right? And now you're not
Yeah.
socializing them. You're teaching them that the smallest little yip is gonna get them out of an uncomfortable situation. And the less you socialize your dog, the more they are going to be reactive. And this is why you find like that small dogs are more aggressive. You get people coming at them, or you have them in an uncomfortable situation. So now they're already on edge and have that fear and anxiety. And then you get people going, oh, and going to touch them and touch their face. And so they
Hmm.
bite. They
Yeah.
bite. They go and
And they're
bite you.
so small.
You're going to get bit. And then, oh, Gibbs is here. I am talking about reactivity, and here goes my dog barking.
It's kind of like when you greet a large dog.
Hmm.
You're not, you're more cautious, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people
Exactly.
put out their hand. They go like pat the side of the dog instead of like top of the head. But when it's a small dog, you're like towering over this dog and you're reaching down
Yes,
to pet the dog. It's kind of scary for that dog. And then
absolutely.
they bite.
And then you're sort of bringing me into the next section of the article here, which is talking about codes of conduct. So
Ooh.
Right? So exactly like what you're saying. Like if you see a big Cane Corso and you're coming up and you think, "Oh, he's cute," which you might not. Like this is the other bias that we talked about, all of our biases of small dogs, but the big ones is that people are scared of bigger dogs. Like they're more cautious around bigger dogs
It's
because
like,
like
is he friendly? Can I
yeah,
pet him?
is he not? And it's because of their size and that they're capable of doing much more damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even in this article, the author talks about a specific story where somebody called bylaw on somebody's chihuahua because it was biting him. And when the bylaw officer showed up, they laughed in the guy's face and said, like, what is this little chihuahua going to do to you? But getting bit is getting bit, man. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what
it
size, it
hurts.
hurts. It hurts. Like I think I mentioned on an episode once where my sister's Dachshund bit me once. I was playing with him, it was all fine and everything, but then my mom had crackers and cheese, and I went to go play with him, not thinking about the food, and he reacted like he was focused on the food. I went to go play with him, not thinking because I just wasn't thinking, and he broke skin, like he bit my hand hard and drew blood, and it hurt.
Mm.
but
Yeah.
if but when Dachshund is chasing you down the street and biting at you, it's still like equally as unpleasant. Like it's definitely more scary if a pit bull's coming at you like aggressively, because that's gonna it's definitely
Cause a lot of damage.
cause more damage. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
bite your arm and stuff like that. So, and as a result, guess what size dogs get euthanized more?
A little large.
The large
The
dogs.
large ones.
Our big boys, Vero, our big
Oh.
boys. So, just in terms of code of conduct and behavior, their studies showed that ultimately it is the human behavior that impacts the disobedience in small dogs. There you have it,
And there you
folks.
have it.
And it just and again it goes on, and it's a lot about the human behavior with small dogs, and I have to say I agree with it. You know, people don't react as much if their small dog bites somebody. They're not as like oh my god, or it's not as much of a travesty as if again like a Saint Bernard were to bite somebody's arm. Clearly the
Yeah.
Saint Bernard's going to do more damage than the smaller one, but I don't think it's less okay or like more okay for a small dog bite. Like yes, it's more. Anyways, I'm talking in circles here. But so they did find that there are some like correlations between size and breed characteristics, and they said that many small dogs are bred for certain jobs, right? So like you get the ground ones, and like the Dachshund, they're like bred to burrow and get like the burrowing animals, like so they
Mm-hmm.
dig and they're small to the ground and stuff like this. And so there's certain behaviors associated obviously with small dogs and big dogs. They also talk about, one study showed that a lot of small dogs were more likely to come from pet stores, which tend to, and in Canada,
Right.
they've we now have law about these pet stores and where they get their dogs from and stuff like that. So I can remember, I think when I took Gibbs down to the States, because we live like right on the border of America, pretty close, and the vets are way cheaper on that side. So I took Gibbon to get fixed in America, and I can remember when we dropped him off, we went to this mall to go shopping for the day. And I remember just being like absolutely flabbergasted that there was this pet store and they had like all the windows with like all the dogs in it, which I can remember going to as a child, but you just do not see that in Canada anymore. Like,
Oh,
like you just don't, right?
no.
Anyways, but it talks about how a lot of people get their small dogs from these pet stores, which tend to acquire their stock from puppy mills, which are known
Mm-hmm.
for terrible breeding practices and like horrible environments. And so it's almost like you're getting a rescue.
Yeah. And that definitely affects their temperament,
Oh, big time.
personality.
Exactly.
It's not fair to the dog.
It's not fair to the dog.
No.
So that's that's what I have to say at the end of my article.
I
Passion.
read up, so it said that small dogs, like their survey showed that small dogs are less obedient. So they don't obey to commands sit down and come,
Mm-hmm.
probably because there's inconsistency in the training, but
Mhm.
also so the same thing, like you're approaching a small dog, you want to do sit. So most people will kneel
Mhm.
to teach a small dog how to do that. I know I did it with
Yep.
Ralph,
Mhm.
but then they when they ask the dog to do sit while they're standing, the dog doesn't do it.
Mhm.
So the dog, like smaller dogs, understand that they associate you kneeling down with them sitting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an extra
It's like
step that you have to do.
in the training and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true because it's like an extra distraction for them. Like they're just like, but you're not kneeling when you
you're
tell
not
me to sit.
kneeling.
It's all these things. Yeah, there's a lot more factors that come into training a small dog for sure.
Hmm. The other thing I wanted to mention that has nothing to do with our topic today
Hmm.
has to do with our topic of last week.
Oh
We
yeah.
talked about the evolution of breeds,
Oh yes.
and we talked about the poodle that had like the braided hair
Hmm.
in the past, but now it's like poofy.
Hmm.
I went to a park today
Yeah.
and I saw a white poodle that had like braided hair.
See, I wouldn't
It
even.
was
But
like dreadlocks.
how? So how did you know it was a poodle and not like
Just
one of the dreadlock dogs?
because it had like a really pointy
Pointy
face.
nose. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Did you
And the
ask
head
them?
was like fluffy, but the
Oh
rest of the
yeah,
body,
was all like dreadlock style.
yeah.
Did you ask the owner? Is that a poodle, or did you just
No.
know?
The belly was shaved.
I would have asked. Oh man, I would have asked him about his dog. I would have been like,
Oh.
"Why the dreads? Like, how come you didn't go a la poof, the poodle poof?"
Viva poof.
Yes, the Viva poof.
It looked really cool.
Yes.
Like the belly was shaved, so it's not like she's just letting the poodle's hair grow and she's not taking care of it.
Yeah. Hmm. That's
Yeah, she
crazy.
was just at the park
I
playing
would have.
ball with.
I totally would have asked that. Another thing that they mentioned at the beginning of the article, which I thought funny, is that like when you deal with small dogs and big dogs, another common practice that they see is like the whole incongruity of naming the dog. So like you get like a tiny little
Mm-hmm.
Chihuahua called Titan,
Yes.
or like a little like Bichon Frise named like Tank,
Yeah. I read
and
that too.
yes, and that like you get these big dogs called like Tiny,
Button.
Button,
I guess
Rose,
I think they were
Rosebud.
saying it's like couples that can't agree
Oh yes, yes,
on the
yes,
type
yes.
of dog they're going to get.
Yeah,
Where one wants a large dog and the other one wants a small dog, but then they get a small dog, but then the other one gets to name the
name in
dog.
that.
And it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Tank.
Bitsy. Goliath the pug. Ah, it's just
Would you
funny.
ever get a small dog, Heidi?
Ah,
Or a medium dog?
do I know what? Well, Scrappy, I would have called him medium, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would argue that people would have said that he was like more on the larger
Yeah.
size breed dog. I can see when I get older, I don't know if I can even see when I get older because, like, to me, like, I know that I have the know how to train the dog well.
Yeah.
So I think I told the story to you before when my mother-in-law was going to get a dog. She was really had her eyes set on the Bernedoodle. And I was
Mm-hmm.
so excited. I was like, this is going to be amazing. He's going to be so cute. Like, I'm going to get, like, to experience another breed. And then she ended up going with a mini golden doodle. And I was like, what? Like, so literally, like, she invited us over to her house and we knew that she had gotten the dog. So I was literally walking into her house thinking I'm about to see this like Bernedoodle puppy and like so excited for it. And then this like little,
Golden.
I hope she
Mini
never
golden.
listens. I hope she never listens to this. This little rat comes running out from the other room. And I was just like, what the heck is this? And I didn't say that, of course, but she had her little Gracie, and Gracie's a sweetheart, and she gets along with Gibbon, and she's been,
Yeah.
like she puts in an effort to train the dog and that sort of thing, but she definitely has some small breed dog tendencies, and I think because of the size, she is like more cautious, like around like other dogs, and it takes that extra little bit of thought when training and stuff. So like just the other weekend we had a barbecue there, and my brother-in-law brought his husky, and there's sort of been a bit of contention between Gracie, the mini doodle, and Kraken, the husky. And she didn't know how to handle it. Like, she's like, is this okay? Like, is this okay what she's doing? Like, is that okay if she, when she does this and stuff? And she was very nervous with the husky, like, around her little dog.
Mm-hmm.
So the, you can see how some of these factors play in. But at the same time, like, so when I think about getting older and like, yeah, am I going to get a Great Dane when I'm like, in my 50s and 60s, knowing that it's going to live for the next 10 years and I'm 70 years old trying to lift a Dane into the car? No,
Yeah.
probably not. But I don't know that I would be willing to go small dog. I don't know. Would you ever get
Yeah.
a small dog?
I don't think so. I'd probably get a medium dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I were to get another one, I don't know. I do not know.
Like when my sister got the corgi, he's very cute, but like, yeah, I would never get a corgi.
Yeah.
And the wiener dogs, I don't know. I don't like wiener
No.
dogs because I find they've got like they're way too stubborn and have got like issues. Never a wiener, but no wiener for me, please. And but there are some small breed dogs that look like absolute, like, that definitely bring the awe phenomenon to me. Like one of Matt's aunts and uncles has a tiny little Pomeranian that they get groomed just so he like legit looks like a teddy bear, like a little teddy bear poof. Maddox was like obsessed with that dog.
Oh,
But would I get one? No,
no.
no. And I think, again, another thing to think about it too is like they said that they're more prone to injury too, like the smaller dogs.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. When you talk cost, there's a lot of different factors involved in cost. Like we said, like when it comes to all the extras and the clothing and that stuff, for sure. When it comes to food, like for sure, there's a very obvious discrepancy there. But
Yeah.
also when like we say that it costs more to take a Great Dane to a vet, but when a small dog is prone to injury from people stepping on it, being too rough, like getting bowled over by a larger dog at a dog park, like
Yeah.
they're more prone to injury. So maybe you're going more often with a small dog to a vet. I don't know.
I
It
don't know.
all depends on the breed and just
Yeah.
how tiny they are. Like, can you imagine if you stepped on a Chihuahua? You'd kill the damn thing.
Or sit on one.
Oh my lord. Oh my
Oopsies.
no, he'd probably bite you on the bum first. Ankle biters
Probably.
and bum biters. But yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I find it like, that's another thing. Like, when it comes to public transportation and stuff like that, like I find like there's like rules, and for obvious reasons. Like, you can bring a service dog anywhere with you, but I remember I don't know if you remember seeing all these memes when like a lot of different transportation services in different cities were making the rule that you can only bring your dog if it can be carried. So
Hmm.
people were like getting like a big Costco bag and cutting four leg holes in it and carrying like their golden retrievers like on the subway.
I can carry it.
But there was like another guy who, I think, did he have a corgi with a backpack, and he had a little GoPro on. So it was like filming people's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
reactions as he walked around like in public and on the subway and everything
Yeah.
like that. And the little